Hi guys, welcome to the video, welcome to Thurk in the UK, and welcome to this beauty here. This is the A2A Comanche, PA24 Comanche, and it's in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, and it's obviously what we're going to be looking at today. Now, Thurk, I'll mention that in a moment, but this is an add-on airfield, and it's part of our route. I'll discuss a bit more when we look at the route. But the aim of today's video is to have a look at the outside, the inside, take it for a flight and see what we think. And a disclaimer from the outset, I've had the PA24 when it was in P3D, and I've also previously done a review on it, and it's an aircraft that I absolutely adore, so a bit of a spoiler alert there. But I adore it for good reasons, and we'll just discuss that as we go through the video. So before we go any further, just a quick thanks, well, a huge thanks really to those who've watched previous videos, supported me, etc. If you do enjoy the video, please don't forget to tick like, share and subscribe. It really helps with the visibility of the channel, and it's hugely appreciated on every level by myself. And likewise, if you wanted to support me in the making of the videos, I do have a Patreon page. Details will be in the description below. But as I say, what we're going to do today is have a look at this beastie. So I'm just going to call up the product page because I want to discuss it's called the Accu-Sim Comanche, and I'll just explain a little bit about that. So bear with me. So having a look at the web page, you can see first thing, $50 near as makes no difference, which I have to say I think is a fair price. As with most stuff, I've bought this out of my own pocket, so I'm fully free to love it or hate it. But the spoiler alert is I do love it. As I say, I've had this aircraft previously in Microsoft Flight, well, no, not Microsoft Flight Simulator, P3D, and that was quite important because the Accu-Sim element here, most people will say virtually every aircraft that was in P3D and FSX and every sim before that basically didn't feel like they were flying an aircraft. It felt like you were just running on rails. Very straightforward, very predictable, didn't do anything untoward, etc. But a couple of companies decided to have a look at changing that. So the most notable one for me was Majestic, who basically completely modelled the flight model outside of the sim for their Q400 and then injected the results back into the sim. So in effect you had a simulator running outside a simulator. Accu-Sim is a very sort of similar objective. I don't know the mechanics of how they do it, but basically what they want to do is make the aircraft feel alive in many ways, and you have responsibilities to keep it going. You have maintenance, you have overhauls, you have various things that you need to look after in terms of the system. So it basically brings the aircraft to life, and it makes it much more of an ownership experience rather than just a one-off flight followed by another one-off flight, etc. You become part of looking after your aircraft, which is very well done. I have to be honest, it's very, very well done in this. So it goes well beyond what you'd expect of a normal aircraft. Now, a lot of aircraft now have failure modelling, which is great. A lot of aircraft have persistent states, which is great. But for me, a lot of that was following on from the excellent work that A2A did. And in terms of the PA24 Comanche, it's probably their best product that they'd released, in my opinion, in previous sims. And it's no surprise it's coming through because A2A actually own a PA24 Comanche, which obviously makes it much easier for them to do a number of things. Not just the physical modelling in terms of, you know, having the imagery and the 3D modelling, but also the flight modelling. You know, they have an intimate knowledge of how this thing handles, and that's one of the key things with Accu-Sim, is it's trying to step away from this sort of runs on rails effect, and to handle more like a real aircraft and to operate more like a real aircraft, which makes a huge difference. So back to our aircraft, and actually we'll mention Thurk as well. So Thurk is an airfield in Essex. It's designed by, this add-on version of it is designed by Burning Blue Design. That's going to be our departure airfield, but we're also flying to Tatenhill airfield, which is in the Midlands. And that's an airfield I flew from extensively. I flew PA28s from there more than anything else. I did have a couple of goes in a Citabria, a Belanca Citabria, I think it was. It's a high wing aerobatic tandem aircraft. Really good fun aircraft, but that was absolutely fascinating. But as I say, I've flown out of Tatenhill quite a bit. Never flown out of Thurk in real life, so it'd be nice to see what that looks like. But we've got a route planned between those two airfields. I'll also declare that Thurk was provided to me by Burning Blue Design, and Tatenhill I'd bought myself out of my own hard cash. But we can be nice and critical of both, and we'll have a look at them as we charge around in the skies. So here we are at Thurk. Let's just have a good look around. This is the airfield as part of the scenery. It's only, what, £9 I think it was. And as you can see, oh, there we go. Very nicely done. It's a very small runway at Thurk, not very big at all. It's quite a small airfield all told, actually. Looking at it, as I say, I've never been there, but it's very nicely modelled. Very nicely modelled indeed. Like the trees, very good. I can't say whether it's accurate or not because I've never been there, but it's a very small and appealing airfield. A couple of Icarus 42s or whatever they might be, not entirely sure. And a Robin. Very nice little airfield. Very nicely done, must admit. It's lovely, isn't it? Look at that. Have a look around inside the hangars. Really nice bit of modelling. Very nice for the money. I can't really complain at what they've done here. As I say, they sent this to me for free, so I thought, well, I'll chuck it in a flight and see what it looks like. But actually, having a closer look, it's very nice, isn't it? Over the hedges. It's fairly basic Tudor, mock Tudor style building there, but the hangars, etc., are all done very nicely. The grass texturing, bits and bobs of cones, etc., around the airfield. Very nicely done. Very nice. As I say, £9. Can't really, if you're into your GA, can't really be too upset with that. It's a nicely located airfield as well down in Essex. It's going to give us a bit of fun as we route around. But let's just pop back to our aircraft. So let's have a look at this beauty and see what we think. And to be fair, a beauty is what she is. So it's a PA24. Most of the time I flew either Cessnas or PA28s. Having said that, that was a long time ago. But it was PA28s I flew out of Tatenhill. Lovely part of the world to fly out of. But I digress. Let's have a look at what we've got here. So 3D modelling, and yeah, all I'm going to say is it's absolutely brilliant. They've absolutely nailed every aspect of it in many respects. There's a couple of areas where you can see down here with the fillet, with the wing root and the bodywork where it's joining. You can see that we've got a little bit of squaring off here, and there's a couple of other areas where if you have a look in, you'll see that it squares off a little bit in the lining. So there's one here, look, where it doesn't quite match as it comes round, but I'm being super picky here. This is a fantastic aircraft in terms of modelling and texturing. And texturing, you can see as we look round towards the sun, you can see the spinner's really high gloss. Then we've got this sort of satin effect, which is done really well. Satin again for the rubber of the tyres. Lovely texturing, so you've got the wear marks for the catches, for the cowling. Likewise, if you look at the top of the cowling, you can see we've got the piano hinge for the cowling, very well modelled in 3D, not something that a lot of developers go into that level of attention of detail, although it's much better these days than it used to be. Go down and have a look at the undercarriage. We'll go around to the nose wheel first. And, you know, it's one of those things, I do wonder why we spend so much time with the undercarriage when we very barely look at it in the realms of our flight simming. But very nicely done. As you can see, good 3D tyre with the grooves, physical grooves, as opposed to just 2D pictures. Very nice linkages for the gear door, etc. Very nicely done. Let's just scoot round. Likewise, you'd see in the old days, you'd have seen the text in the correct orientation on one side of the wheel, and on the other it would be the wrong way round, but we don't have that these days. But very nice attention to detail with the hub assembly and the axle there. Very nice indeed. We'll just scoot over and have a look at the main gear whilst we're under here, and again same sort of thing, very nicely modelled, a lot of detail, great texturing, And we'll just have a quick look up, and you can see we've got all the various brake lines, etc., all very nicely modelled. I'm not sure if that line there is part of the texturing. I think it is. So let's go back and have a look at the rest of the aircraft then. And looking down the wing line, there's something I've not seen before. I'll see if I can get a decent look at it. This sort of fillet here, it doesn't look big enough to be a structural thing, and it doesn't look, I don't know if it's aerodynamic. I don't know why that would be there, but it looks like it's just riveted over the top. I've never seen that before, but the PA24, it's different to the Hershey wing that early PA28s had, so it looks like it's slightly tapered, and then it's got a kink where it goes into a very much wider or very much larger chord line for the inner section. But again, as we come around, we can see the nice lighting effects on the perspex of the canopy or the plexiglass, and then we'll go and have a look around at the front, and that's because there's some very nice detailing as you get round to the front. As you can see in there, looks absolutely fantastic. Very high level of attention to detail. Very, very nicely done. Whoa! So lovely. Obviously it's a variable pitch prop, constant speed prop in this thing. Most of my flying was done with a single speed, not a single speed prop, with a fixed pitch prop. But obviously for your commercials, which I did, you have to do complex aircraft, which includes gear and variable pitches or constant speed props of some description, although the DA42 kind of got around that a little bit. But there we go. And very nice, very nicely done. Lovely modelling of the wingtip fuel tanks, the auxiliary fuel tanks. There's various panels that you can open on the walk around to check fuel, etc. And very nicely done. Baggage compartment at the back here. And you can see actually one of the things that's nice, you can see these things sit outside a lot of the time, and if they do have covers, they don't cover the whole aircraft. They tend to just cover the sort of cabin area. But it's nice to see almost the water weather marks coming down from each of the rivets. Very nicely done. Of course, Piper have a flying tailplane, so it's slightly different to how Cessna are. Very nicely done. Even down to this area down here, look, where you can see there's a slight difference in the shaping here, almost scalloping here. So in terms of the externals, where does that leave us? Well, excellent really. Apart from 2 or 3 little areas where there might be a little bit of straight lining cutting off in terms of the corners, it's superb. Absolutely superb. The attention to detail. So you've got the outside air probe just sticking out here, as you can see, through the glazing. There's your gauge, here's your sensor. Very nicely done, very nicely done indeed. So yeah, big tick for that. So here we are in our lovely cockpit, and very nice it is too. And again, the first thing we're going to do is look at the modelling before we start turning everything on. And it has to be said that having access to the real thing, and this is basically a copy of the real thing, shows hugely. And then in effect the second element is not just having the actual aircraft to play with, but also the ability to transfer that into something that actually resembles that aircraft. And to that extent, they've done a fantastic job. There's not really many other ways you can describe it. So for example, the windows, you'll see the screws in the windows are 3D, which is just fantastic. That's a really great attention to detail there. The panel can be varied between the aircraft, so the radio fit can be varied. We'll have a look at the sort of options with regards to that, but the overall sort of impression of the cockpit is very, very good. We'll have a look at a slightly more detailed view of it. We'll just mention a couple of bits before we do so. First thing is, quite often in GA aircraft your control lock will be something quite rudimentary. So Cessnas have like a pin that drops down here, but when that pin gets lost, as it inevitably does, you can either buy another one, or what a lot of the people I flew with did was they had some other way of restraining the controls from flying around. Everything from using the seatbelt of the aircraft to this, which is just a bungee between the two yokes, which is good and effective. We'll just get rid of that. It's got the usual ability to get rid of the yokes by clicking by the bottom of the yokes, and what you'll see here is the buttons that were on the yoke, so autopilot disconnect and altitude engage disengage, are duplicated down here as well, so you don't have to keep calling this back up if you haven't got the keys bound. The switches are very sort of A2A, shall I say. They're almost identical in colour and appearance to those on their PA28. Really nice colour coding. Likewise, the sound's really nice, very firm and positive. These switches, these type of switches, all have the same sound. Obviously, other switches, slightly different sounds. So in effect, they've got one sound for all these switches, and then if it's a different style of switch, they have a different sound, which makes sense. Mixture. So the sliders have got the same sound. Yeah, so what they've got is they've got one sound for each type of switch or control. So yeah, we'll just leave that for the moment. Yeah, nice, very nice sounds. Okay, so the modelling in terms of the cockpit to start with, we'll have a look at the back in a second. Very nice in terms of the appearance, very well modelled. These days, unlike in the old days of FSX, etc., you can zoom in really close to an instrument and you can get right close up in its face, and you can see that it doesn't lose any clarity. It's absolutely crystal clear, very nice. This is the autopilot we'll mention in a bit, because it's very different to a normal Bendix King autopilot that you would see in later GA aircraft. But you can see there's some lovely detailing in terms of scratches, scuff marks. It doesn't look pristine, it doesn't look new. Simple things like the screws aren't all in the same orientation, so it gives that sort of illusion. Likewise, some of them are more scuffed than others. And then you've got the different levels of animation within the instrument. So you know, you've got an outer ring here. Well, in fact, you've got the flags and the heading marker here, sort of the outermost level. Then you've got the green arrow for your selected heading. You've got the yellow needles, etc. And you can see it's layered, so it's very well done. It's not an easy thing for them to do in many respects, because you've probably got about 6 layers just for one instrument here. Something like that, this is much easier, because you've obviously got just the glazing layer effect. You've got the needle, and then you've got the face of the instrument. But this is a whole different beast, and it's very nicely modelled. Likewise, you've got your course and your heading. And until I started mucking around with this, I wasn't really familiar with the Century brand of avionics. Most of the aircraft I flew had Bendix King. I say I flew, God, it's got to be 12, 14 years now since I last flew an aircraft, which is galling, really galling. Again, it's nice down here because you do get the parallax error with the gauges. Very nice, but very typical Piper gauges down here. VOR2, and it's got ADF as well. ADF is quite a challenge, because if we zoom out, you can see quite a considerable parallax error if you're viewing across the panel. What we will do is we'll just go this way a little bit, and you can see the depth in terms of the 3D modelling. It's very nicely done, very, very nicely done. Texturing is superb. Lighting, PBR materials, etc. And then you get to things like the quilting on the door here. Looks very effective. Likewise, where it's coming around onto the seats here. Very nicely done. A little bit of wear on the seats as well. There's a couple of aircraft have done the sort of texture of the material slightly better. I mean, this is... I'm being ultra picky here, but that's really good. The satin leather finish as well, really good. Really nicely done. It's a very nice, very clean aircraft. Of course, it's got the Piper door, so you've only got the one door on the right hand side, and if it does it, I'm sure it will, but when you click that, yeah, you see the door just pops slightly ajar because it's got two catches. It's got one at the top and then one at the bottom. Got a nice sound from the door restraint there. Close that. Ooh, that's a nice solid noise. But obviously I can undo this one, but it won't let me do it if this latch is on. You certainly know if this latch is open in the aircraft because it's quite noisy. But as an aside, I got stuck in a PA28 once because it's only got the one door. So it was a PA28140 Cherokee, and the handle broke, and I ended up having to radio. This was at Tatenhill, one of their aircraft, when I was doing my hours building. Went to open the door and this handle didn't work. So this latch worked absolutely fine, but this handle didn't work. So I was stuck in the aircraft because obviously there's no other doors on one of these. And so I ended up having to radio the base and say, can somebody come and help me out, please? Which was a bit embarrassing, but obviously not my fault. Ashtrays from back in the day. Little cubby hole for stuff, although we've obviously got no stuff. And then you get other things. So you've got the, let me see, the flaps. Love it. Absolutely love it. Really, really nicely done. And then we get down here, we've got this little pocket down. In fact, we'll go and have a look in the back of the aircraft, in the cabin back there. But it's going to be more of the same. Lovely 1960s feel to it. Things like the air vents, they can be moved around, opened and closed, etc. Very, very nice. Fuel selectors are down here, by the way. Of course, an interesting or important thing, I should say, for this aircraft is it flies with reference to miles per hour. Avionics, they're a bit of a law unto themselves. We will mention them before we go. Oh, what have I done? I hate the mouse roll wheel when you happen to be near something. So this is your autopilot gauge as well as a turn coordinator, and your autopilot is controlled using this knob here. And when it's good to go, you get a ready light, and then these are your lateral mode controls, if you like. So steering is your heading select. Steering, ST is just straight ahead, so it'll just maintain going straight ahead. HD follows the heading bug, and then low and high are to track the nav1, whichever it is. If it's a nav1 off the radios or off the GPS, it will track that. And I believe that low and high are the gain, so that's how tightly it will turn to try and attain that track. And obviously if you're a long way away from the beacon, then low will be fine, but if you're quite close, you might need to have it on high. But that's my understanding. Please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. In terms of the vertical aspect, it's only really got altitude hold, and when you've got altitude hold, this will light up here. Now, the way the aircraft flies it is I believe the mechanics are that it operates the tailplane. However, obviously, once you start to get to the extremes of movement, it's working against the trim of the aircraft. And what that means, in order for the system to operate, every now and again it will ask you to trim the aircraft. So to trim up or trim down. I can't really think of a much easier way of explaining it, but we'll probably have to do it in the flight and it'll become apparent. But basically, if you're flying an aircraft and you're fighting the trim, you have to put a lot of force in. So once an aircraft's trimmed, the whole point of the trim is to remove that force. In effect, it's exactly the same thing. If the autopilot is fighting the trim, you then have to manually trim it to get it within an acceptable range where the autopilot can continue to control the elevator. So that's probably a slightly better way of describing it, but we will have a look at it in flight. The 3-needle altimeter, not really an issue in GA aircraft, but can be an issue in, GA is the wrong phrase, not really an issue in an aircraft such as this that generally won't fly particularly high altitudes. But the 3-needle altimeter in terms of human factors became an issue with airliners that could fly particularly high, because this needle, this really thin one, would indicate your tens of thousands. So you'd have hundreds, thousands and tens of thousands. And of course it could be missed that if you didn't read it correctly because you had the three needles, you could misread it. And it was a contributory factor many years ago. We were talking, 60s, 70s. It was a contributory factor to such things as controlled flight into terrain or incorrectly setting your reading your altimeter. So you don't tend to get the three needle altimeter that much these days because of the human factor, the sort of safety element of it. But obviously we have it here. This is your fuel computer. We'll come back to that. Your engine monitor and fuel computer, and then you've got your ADF down here. So yeah, really nice. I wouldn't describe myself as a high time pilot in this thing in the sim. I've only got a couple of hours in it, I think, but what I've flown has been very, very nice. And one of the oddities, of course, is the Piper trim on the ceiling. Early PA28s had that as well. This is the EFB. So, and this aircraft has a very decent one. So you've got the home page, obviously, just which aircraft you're in, really. Can we yeah, I need to update it. Flight info, it just tells you the basics about the flight in terms of the met data, etc. Headwind, crosswind, all this nice stuff. Estimated endurance at the moment is just under 4 hours, which is nice because we're not going to use all of that. Checklists if you wanted to follow them. Emergencies likewise. And then going across, we've got controls. So this is one of the things where it affects this. So you can choose GPS, no GPS, GNS 430, GNS. Oh, what the hell is that? I don't want that. I don't want Simbox. So you can go away. GNS 530 if you wanted that. Modern Monkey, GNS 530 and 430, so you can get both flavours of them, and then GTN 750XI, which is what I've got as the add-on. As I say, the PDS or PMS one will work as well, but I tend to go with this aircraft, I tend to go basic. You've also got further controls here, so what? No, that's not what I wanted to do. That's the tow bar. You've got further controls here. This is one of the things when you have to right-click your mouse to move stuff around. As you see, you can tow bar it around if you want. Quite why you'd want to do that, I don't know, because it's slow and I haven't got this. I haven't spent $50 US to have a tow bar simulator, but there we go. You can control most of your systems in here in terms of miscellaneous electric lights, etc. Engine heater, it would be necessary if you were flying in cold enough climates with this aircraft because it will replicate issues with engine temperatures. You can use your autopilot modes down here. As you can see, there's not a great master switch, mode, disconnect and altitude hold. That's it. Auto start we won't be doing. Cold and dark we've got at the minute, so you can choose which of these you want, and then you should further instrumentation stuff down here in terms of whether you wanted gyro, drift, etc. Persistent, here we go, persistent by livery. So this basically means the persistent modelling state of the aircraft will vary between liveries, which is great. It's absolutely fantastic. Realistic parking brake, simple thing, you don't realise how happy that's made me in terms of the behaviour of parking brakes, because what we have in FS 2020 is absolutely nothing like real life. But they've changed that here. Metric temperature, which we've got, changed a few of the volumes, etc. And then there are some advanced options if you want to come down here in terms of wear rates, etc. Very, very nicely done, so we'll get rid of those. Then we're going to skip along to payload fuel. Obviously we've got tip tanks there, largely empty at the minute, so we're not going to bother with those. But you can change what you've got in each seat just by clicking on it, and you can see the aircraft rock as we change the seating position. We'll have 2 of us today, and then the baggage we'll have a quick look at when we do the walk around. So your weights, fuels, etc. here, very nice. We'll have metric, more familiar with that being in the UK. Now maintenance, this is a significant page for this. So you've got airframe maintenance, where you can inspect the maintenance of the airframe. We're all good at the moment, we're all green, we haven't bent anything or damaged anything. You can choose whether you want tip tanks on or off. I've always had them on, so let's have them off for a change, just see what it looks like. A couple of other variables you can have down here, different props, etc. Overhaul airframe. Overhaul all. You can choose whether you want your aircraft new, used, or from an auction. And then in terms of the engine, you've got engine management, so you can even go down to the level of choosing what sort of oil you want, which will change the behaviour of the engine when you're trying to start it in certain weather conditions, etc. Spark plugs, whether you want the spark plug to be a fine wire or massive. I've gone for massive because massive is most. But you can also clean the spark plugs, might need to do that at some point. Well, I say that definitely will need to do. Overhaul the engine, overhaul all again. And then what you can do is inspect it, and it'll come up with the compressions for the engine. So this is how good the compression is, the compression state for each cylinder in the engine. You start your crankshaft, your alternator, blah 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 blah. It's all there really. Engine analyzer. This is something you can have on during flight. This will show you the performance of the engines. It doesn't do anything whilst you're on the ground, or you haven't got the engine running, but it shows you all of the engine behaviour, and then the electric system, which as you can see we haven't got on at the moment. We've got plenty of battery charge, but it will show you if you're charging, discharging in various areas, and it will also show you things that you can manipulate, such as the generator, beacon lights, etc. So there is a lot to this. I found it absolutely fascinating to play with. You'll also notice we're misting up slightly because we haven't got any ventilation on, so we'll have to do something about that as well. But let's go back here, and what we'll do is we'll take the wheel chocks off, tie downs off, pitot covers off, make sure they're all off. We'll turn the battery on. We'll pop the lights on. That should be fine. Let's just have a quick look outside. Just make sure things are doing what they should be doing. And you can see nav light, landing light. Beacon's doing its beacony thing. Nice to see it's rotating, which is what the real thing does. We should have lights at the back as well, which we do. Everything is as we'd expect, apart from the fact we've got another aircraft wing in the way. Really nice. So we don't want to run down the battery too much. Just turn the battery off now. Whoa! I don't want to tow the aircraft around. That's yeah. That's not a Comanche thing. That's just me hating how we have to move image screens around, etc. with mouse quite a lot these days. Right. So what we'll do is we'll do the rest of the walk around, having just checked the lights and the electrics are on. So you start in the cockpit, do your various things. So you'd be looking for things like making sure the gear is down. So the gear is this little orange switch down here. Quickly make sure that's down. So let's just pop the power on again. And you'll see it comes, there's two lights. There's a sort of pastel green and a yellow, and it's a 3-position switch, which sometimes catches people out, but you want to make sure it's all the way down. Flaps are mechanical, so that's not an issue, so we'll drop the flaps for our look outside, and then we'll continue with our walk around. We'll jump outside. So as you go around the walk around, you can do things like wiggle the flaps, make sure they look okay, inspect them more closely, and we'll just quickly zip round. Over towards the ailerons. They're differential ailerons, so pop round to here. We haven't got the lights on, but this is where our landing light and navigation lights were. You can see the landing lights are the more modern LED type in here, but the detail is really nice. Texturing, fingerprints and scrapes all over it. Absolutely fantastic. Really, really nice. Keep going around the walk around. Tie downs are off. If you wanted to put the tie downs on, you can put the tie downs on, and obviously before you go you take them off. I don't know if we can, no, you can't wriggle that from this side. Just check for fuel, and you can check you can see there's some blue fluid in there, so that all looks good. If I remember rightly, on the PA28s there's like a step part way down, like a little metal step, which gives you a partial indication, but in reality what you'd have to do is dip the tanks and check the undercarriage. You check for creep marks. wear, etc., but the chocks are removed. You can test the fuel under here if you wished, around to the front, so you can have a look in for debris and issues in the intakes, quality and condition of the spinner, making sure it's all secured, just having a good visual check. And also you want to have a feel and a poke and a pull, make sure things are properly secured. Look at the engine oil, so just pop that open, bring it up. It gives you what you need in terms of capacity. 12 quarts, can't quite see, we've got what, 9, 10 and a half quarts there, which is absolutely spot on for what we need. Get down, there we go, close that up, have a look at the fuel in the wing. Again, you've got the information as to max usable, etc. Looks like fuel, that'll do me. Again, the other undercarriage is fine, same sort of thing, other tie down is off, other lights are fine. Wiggle the ailerons, wiggle the flaps. Static port's clear. So as you can see, we can wiggle the elevator. I think it's anti-balance tabs on this. I think that's the phrase. As I say, it's over 10 years since I've flown an aircraft, and that's a lot of sleeps in which to forget stuff. Static port on the other side. Baggage compartment. I love seeing the wear and tear on the flap here from people getting up and down. Looks absolutely fantastic. But if you wanted, you can undo the luggage compartment, pop the key in, open it up, and it will take a couple of bags, pop them in, close that up again, and that'll do us. That's all we're taking. And if we go to fuel and payload now, you'll see that we've got the baggage in down here. So you can put the baggage in either here or through the baggage hatch at the back, but absolutely brilliant. And then you've got your CFG trim here that you can play with. But I also noticed that when we got rid of the tip tanks, it actually got rid of the boxes here as well. So they've paid an awful lot of attention to it. Really, really nice. Really, really nice. So what we'll do actually is we'll just bring this up whilst we set ourselves up. Right, so let's see if we can get this thing started here. You can see we've started to mist up outside, which is, started to mist up because we're gassing away in here, and it's lovely weather outside, but in Simland anyway. So I don't believe it's an injected engine. It's a Lycoming O540. If it was an IO 540, it'd be injected, so I don't believe it's injected. But 6-cylinder flat engine. We'll have a go at getting this thing started. So we'll pop the master on, and everything should start to come to life, which it appears to be doing. We're not going to go through any particular checklists. Rotating beacon, that absolutely does my head in. Magnetos to both. Make sure the fuel catches are on. The fuel switches, I should say. There we go. Now we'll prime the engine. That's a carb heat, Richard, you fool. 1, 2, 3. We'll give it 4. Make sure it's locked. We'll just crack the throttle a little bit, and we'll see how we get on. So, oh, magnetos need to be on as well. So, oh, we've got them on. You are being quite thick today, Richard. There we go. Need a little bit of juice to get it going. We'll just lean it off a little bit while it warms up. There we go. So we'll just get rid of this for the moment, so we can do various bits and bobs down here. So what we're going to do is turn this on. We need the avionics on, of course. Turn these on. Turn these on. Up nice and bright. They'll come on in a moment. We'll turn the transponder to Alt, which in the UK for conspicuity is 7000 for VFR conspicuity. Just turn the volume down on my headset a bit. There we go. and everything else is looking, the AI is erected, all looks nice. And then got a warning of oil. Just have a look at our gauges down here. Oil temperature's low, but obviously that's to be expected with the start. Oil pressure's nice. And yeah, we all look pretty good, to be honest. Just need to let the engine warm up. We'll turn the DME ADF on. DME, of course, is through this setup here. And yeah, we'll let ourselves start going. So just letting that warm up. I must admit, I'm not an expert on this system at all. 43.9 remaining. Does that kind of tally with this? 15 gallons, 16, just under 20 each side. Yeah, I need to learn how to use this better. Yeah, it's a downfall of mine that I don't really know how to use this system. Having said that, I've never encountered it in the real world either, so my bad. I should read up on that. But anyway, we're up and running. We'll let the engine warm up because we need to be nice to it like that, and we'll just let it do its thing while we sort out the radios. So let me sort out the radios. Right, the first radio we said was Lamborn 115.6. So over here we've got 115.6. Put that into the active. It may not pick anything up in terms of the DME. Distance, there we go. No, it's picking it up, 10.4. That's reasonable. So we'll put it back onto its frequency. And the next frequency we're going to need after Lamborn is Bovington 11375. So 11375. So we'll put that in the standby. 11375. We'll do 116.4. So we'll just back up what we've got, I think, for a second nav today. We're not going to get too excited about it. And then our inbound course to Lamborn is 115.6 309. There we go. So 309 is what we need here. There we go. That's pretty much the nav setup with an aircraft like this. It doesn't take much at all. And as I say, we've got our second nav aid set up. Oh great, we've lost connection. Never mind, eh? I think with my internet it drops out and comes back quite frequently, but let's reset ourselves here. You can see that now we've got some air in the cabin. We can see it's started to sort its life out here. And we'll just wait for the temperature to rise before we start mucking around with anything. And the oil temperature's coming up nicely. Internet connection's still dead. It does this occasionally for me with the flight sim. But there we go. Right, let's just pop ourselves back here. We're in a decent enough condition to taxi, so take the power off, take the brakes off. Try not to have the power working against the brakes. Something my old instructor told me many moons ago. Let's just take him out. Don't like him. Stood there, a bit close. Thanks, Frank. We'll just scoot out. And literally got the start of the runway in front of us here, look. So we'll take the opportunity. We'll join it. We'll join it, backtrack and line up. Got a bit bogged down in the sim. I'm assuming by the long grass here we weren't supposed to go over this grass. And round we come. Look at the lighting on that tarmac. Absolutely glorious. I've never seen a PA24 in the flesh. I've seen a variety of Pipers, but not a PA24. Yeah, I suspect we probably should have come around from there, shouldn't we? Okay, so in terms of taxiing, a couple of things I'll mention. The steering's nice, the brakes are nice. You can do a nice tight turn, bit of engine, bit of brake. Getting a grating noise, which is nice. Okay, there we are, lined up. So in terms of the fact that this is A2A Accu-Sim, we're going to make sure we do a run-up. I'll be honest, I can't remember the exact process of doing a run-up with a variable pitch prop, but we'll exercise it anyway, so we'll just bring the RPM up. Let it stabilise. One to the left, restore. Two to the left, restore. See what happens when we do carb heat. Should get a drop. Heard the engine note change, which is expected. Just cycle the prop. Get some nice warm oil around the prop into its mechanism. And away we go. Let's see if my rudders are going to actually play ball. Well, just about. Looking for 85 to rotate. Looking for the centre line as well, that'd be nice. Oh, it's pretty much flown itself off. Very nice. There's no more available runway for us to take off. We're climbing out at 100 nicely. Gears up. Flaps up, pitch change. Didn't anticipate it. Very bad of me. And we'll continue the climb out at 110 to start with. Now, my feet are central in the controls, and you can see the ball slightly to the right. So we said we'd climb at 110, Richard, not all the way down there. And we're coming out a slightly different direction because our heading bug isn't what we said we would be at. So we're going to go and intercept our outbound. Trim, 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 trim. We don't need to be climbing that fast. What we will do, however, is we'll just reduce the workload on the engine. We'll throttle back to start with, about 24 inches, and then bring the RPM back to 24 inches as well to get a more sedate climb going. Just make sure we trim. We'll pop the autopilot on, and you can see it goes through its test with all of the, we'll just steer it with the rudders while we're faffing around with this. Let's bring us round to the right. Now we're intercepting our outbound, and we've bust our altitude as well whilst I've been talking. That's very, very bad. We've gone past 2,500. But we're in Simland, we don't care. We can get away with that sort of thing. We're not getting shouted at by ATC, who would genuinely be shouting at us because it's London airspace above us. Bring the power back while we descend down back to 2,000 feet. And settle ourselves down. So you can see the autopilot now has gone on to a single green light. That indicates it's ready, but it's not active at the moment. So keep on coming down because we're VFR. We shouldn't really be flying over built-up areas if we can avoid it, but in Simland we can largely do what the hell we want. Now, one of the things I'll highlight with this aircraft is the trim is very, very nice. a lot of aircraft you'll find the trim is overexcitable, so you'll give it a blip and it'll try and throw you off into the Wild West, but this thing doesn't. It trims out quite nicely. So let's just get ourselves down to where we said we would be, 2,000 feet. Anticipate rounding out a little bit. We're fair motoring as well, aren't we, eh? And what we can do then is we can pop ourselves on altitude hold. In fact, what we'll do is we will do track. So the light's not particularly great here. We've lost 200 feet whilst I've been gassing away. But what I've done is I've switched it across to low, and you can see it's basically low gain, so it's going to use minimal control inputs to... Let's try and get our altitude back to where we were supposed to be. So I've just found out you can't engage the altitude hold unless you're in a lateral mode. That's our lesson for today. Let's just trim ourselves a little bit better. And we'll pop down and put altitude engage, and it comes up with a little blue light. And that will hold us at the altitude we engaged it at. It's got no real vertical mode other than that. That's literally all it is. We'll pop this into high gain, see if we can recover our flight path a little bit better. And there we go, so 150 miles an hour, so what's that, 130 knots. So this beep, you can see it's got the trim indication down here, is asking me to trim down. So if I trim down, and that's basically because the aircraft is telling me that I need to not match the trim to the forces, but reduce the forces on the autopilot by using the trim. It's a very cool system. How far we've got to go? 1.5 miles. So at this point in real life, you'd be approaching what's called the cone of confusion, or the zone of confusion, which is basically straight above the 280 is where we're going next. Straight above the beacon. It's very difficult because it's got a very poor signal. So what we'll do is we'll go on to heading. So 1, 2 onto heading, and that'll bring us round to the left, and then we can just quickly switch over to that. That's our next beacon, and this is the one we're leaving. So you can see now it's got 26.3 miles to go. And flying over lovely, lovely southern England. I have to say, Microsoft Flight Simulator with its scenery is excellent, absolutely superb. So yeah, I'm going to fly this route. As I say, the autopilot is fun. Let's just put this onto 280 whilst I'm gassing, and then we can put this onto tracking it. And that will track towards our next beacon. ADF we're going to use in a bit, so what I'll do is I'll pull up the ADF frequency, which is 335. What are we on here? 327, so let's just come over here. 335 we said, didn't we? 3, 3, 5, and we'll just swap that over, and that's going to be our ADF for Westcott. Westcott's it still uses an ADF, but I think it's more used really as a sort of nominated point in space for RNAV, for area nav, but you still can use the NDB, the non-directional beacon, which is kind of cool. But NDB approaches, so when you do your commercial exams, you have to demonstrate a precision approach and a non-precision approach, and most commonly in the UK the non-precision approach tends to be an NDB approach. So Cranfield, where I did my exam, that's an NDB approach there, or there's an NDB approach available, but as I say, you have to do one precision and one non-precision, and what they generally did is you also have to do an approach with one engine failed. So for me, I ended up doing an engine failed approach on the ILS, with vectors to the ILS. So in effect, you're not playing the system, but you're trying to give yourself the best opportunity, because doing a non-precision approach, self-positioning for a non-precision approach on a single engine, your workload's much higher than doing an ILS with vectors to the ILS. So the exams test a lot of things, but what you'll find is in certain steps they will test multiple things. So rather than doing a single engine approach, they'll do a single engine approach with the precision approach, etc. But so yeah, in the UK you still do ADF approaches as part of your instrument rating, or non-precision I think is a better way of describing it. It doesn't have to be an ADF. You could arguably do a VOR approach as a non-precision approach. But yeah, so here we are, off we go. So I'm going to fly the route, and I will see you guys in a bit. What we'll do towards the end is we'll have a look at the handling. I might skip the ADF because if I show you the route, we'll zoom out. If I show you the route, this ADF here, Westcott, is between Daventry and Bovingdon VORs. So in real life, I would probably use the VORs as my primary nav aids, and I would just double check it with Westcott. As you can see, we've got a fair old way to get up to Tatenhill, so I'll leave the aircraft doing its fabulous work, and I will see you guys in a bit. And as I say, what I'll do is I'll fly the route, and then as we get up to Tatenhill, I'll start recording it again, and what we'll do is we'll have a look at some general handling, what the aircraft feels like. We'll have a discussion about the aircraft, and we'll have a go at landing at Tatenhill. As I say, Burning Blue Designs, Tatenhill, another really nice airfield by them. They do a lovely range of, but from a personal perspective, they do a lovely range of airfields. They're the sort of airfields that I flew into and out of in my flying days, which are many years ago, but there we go. So let me just get this out of the way, and I will see you guys in a moment. So I just mentioned this is a thing. We're going through the Midlands now, and this is Atherstone, and I used to work in Atherstone as a police officer, and it's a fantastic place, but it's got a thing called the Atherstone Ball Game, which I suggest have a look on YouTube. It's an ancient ball game where they try and have teams, and whoever's got the ball at the end of the game wins it. This is another thing I will highlight actually. We seem to have some sort of haze effect in the aircraft. Actually, I'll pop outside and I'll demonstrate it. Now we've only got 10 miles or so to go. So it's like a heat haze effect off the wing. Where is it? It's not so prevalent on the outside. There it is. You see what I mean? It's got this like heat haze effect, and although the engine exhaust is under here, I don't think it's necessarily that prevalent. Look at it all over here, this sort of effect here. But it's only obvious on one side. I'm not quite sure what's going on with that. Very weird. I think that might be more the sim than anything else, rather than A2A. But yeah, so interesting place, Atherstone, with a ball game where they run up and down the town with a ball game, and whoever's got it last wins. Fascinating place. So yeah, there's a couple of other things I'm going to mention as we go up here. So let's just bring this over. So we're here. This is the town of Tamworth over here, so we might be able to see it. Yeah, there it is. The wondrous town of Tamworth with its buildings there. And we'll come across some lakes ahead of us in a bit. Let me get this up again. Oh. Let me get this up again. So as you see, we come up towards some lakes. Roddage airfields down here. Never flew from there. It's a microlight airfield, but it's right on the main road here, which goes up towards Burton-on-Trent. But this is Tatenhill. Tatenhill's absolutely fantastic place to fly out of, really good fun. But there's also a couple of gliding clubs around here. Flew gliders out of one of them. Can't remember which one though. No, I don't think it's Abbots Bromley. But there we go. So we're going to come up here, we're going to come across these lakes for the quarry where there's a railway. We'll see just how good it is in terms of navigation with the VORs, because we are expecting to go across a set of lakes, a road and a railway, all sort of conjoining at one location here. Then what we'll do is we'll have a bit of a go at general handling, and then we'll see what we think. So we've got clear airspace above us a little bit. Let me just double check that. I think we've got yeah, we've got east mids out to the northeast, 3,000 feet, but we're going to be staying to the west of that, so we'll be all right. So yeah. Let's have a go at some general handling once we get over these lakes. You can see the lakes coming in here now. So there's a series of lakes across here. We're expecting around here to have a combination of lakes and railway and road, which is the A38, I believe, which goes up towards East Mids Airport, or that sort of part of the way. So here we are. Here's our series of lakes. And railways are quite useful from the air because they tend to be straight lines, and straight lines stand out in nature because there's a lot of nature which is just not straight lines. So we'll see how we do. Might pop outside to have a better look, but where's our road and our railway? This looks like it's going to be following the railway here because it's pretty straight down here, isn't it? That looks like it's our railway here, is it? No? Let's pop outside, see if we can see it a bit clearer. It'd be nice to do this in real life, wouldn't it? Yeah, so there's our railway, there's our road, and here's our lakes. So we are exactly where the map said we would be. Okay, so we've only got a couple of miles to go, 4 or 5 miles to go to our destination. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to have a bit of a play and see what we think. So we'll take the autopilot off. There's no warning to tell you the autopilot's come off, and we'll have a little bit of a go in terms of general handling. So she's very nice to fly. She's dihedral wing, so we'd expect quite a bit of stability in roll. So we'll see if she comes back in slowly, slowly, slowly. So we do have some slow, I don't want to crash into the ground, we do have some mild stability in roll. Very slow though, and as you can see we've got let's just trim ourselves for level flight. It should be relatively, well, we don't want to go into the clouds. Clouds are bad. Tatenhill's just down here, by the way. You can see the crossover of the runways. But in terms of pitch stability, nicely stable and pitch. Our manoeuvring speed's 144 knots in this, or 144 miles an hour I should say. So very stable in pitch. Let's stick it way up and see what happens. Speed comes down, nose comes down, drops through the horizon, airspeed comes up, and as the airspeed comes up we'd expect the nose to pitch up. Hopefully it will do so before we hit the ground. Yeah, it's going to do so. So it's positive, albeit slow in terms of pitch stability. Roll stability we've mentioned is slightly positive. Yeah, you can see it's just gently levelling itself out. And then in terms of yaw stability, very strong. We'll have a look at adverse yaw as well. Does the aircraft have adverse yaw? It might not be that easy to demonstrate because we've got differential ailerons in this, and it depends on how the aircraft's been rigged. But what we're going to do is use this cloud here, and we're going to roll left and we expect an initial movement of a yaw to the right. Try that again. It does have mild adverse yaw looking at that. Obviously if you coordinate it with the rudder, it's going to be much better. Talking of rudder, the slip ball in this thing, it seems to be glued in the middle. So I'll zoom in a bit, and what we'll do is my feet are off the rudder, turn left, it bounces around, and I don't know if the aircraft is rigged for... But I've got my feet off the pedals and I don't really need to move my feet at all. So I don't know. I mean, obviously A2A have got the real aircraft, so I don't know if the rigging of the aircraft is such that it balances itself. But I suspect it probably wouldn't be. So that for me is a question mark. One of the things you generally have to do in general aviation is use your feet. We'll just try and get clear of this cloud, and then we'll do a bit of a stall. We're quite low, so we probably shouldn't get too excited. You'd normally do your hazel checks, so we're going to ignore that because we're rock hard, and we'll just get ourselves a little bit of airspace and elevation to go up into, so that we don't just slam into the ground the moment we do it, and we'll just level out. In fact, we'll just bring the power off. So this is a clean stall. We'll see what we get as the aircraft drops away. All we're going to do is try and maintain power fully off. Stall warning, or sorry, gear warning is in. I don't know if it has an audible stall warner or not. It's got the lights flashing, so we've got no audible stall warner. We've got juddering and a wing drop to the right, which is nice. Just bring ourselves around to this gap again. And we'll see what it's like again. We'll have another go. We'll try and balance the ball, see if we can keep it. So we're yawing slightly to the right. We'll just balance it a little bit, see if we can get it to balance. Sticks held, ailerons held level. Nice bit of buffet, and it's gone to the left. Yeah, so very nice stall characteristics. We'll try a stall with flaps down. Check speed, flaps down. We'll put the gear down as well. We'll just go to the incipient stage. We won't let it do a full stall, and we'll look for the signals. So we're looking for a buffet. So let's assume we're going into land. We've taken our eye off the speed. Just trying to extend the take the throttle all the way off. Taking our eye off the ball. In fact, the gear's not properly down yet. There we go. Bit of buffeting. We've ignored the buffeting. It's going to go left. Yeah. I like the stall characteristics. Oh, make sure we don't pull into a secondary stall. Bring the gear up. Bring the flaps up. And obviously being GA, it's fairly manoeuvrable. And it's just a joy to fly. Very stable. Very nice indeed. Okay. Let's bring ourselves back round towards our home field of Tatenhill. It's coming around on the left somewhere. There it is. And we'll do a standard join. So Tatenhill's about 400 feet elevation. We'll ignore the gear warning. Make sure we've got our carb heat on. And bring ourselves around here. And let ourselves go down to about 2,400 feet. Ooh, that's not great. Wasn't paying attention. Thank you, stall warner. In fact, gear warner. I thought the gear was up. Gear is up, so it must be the stall warner then. Right, where's Tatenhill now? It's right out on our right wing somewhere. Going to bring ourselves around to do a standard join at 2,400. There we go, we're over the top of the airfield now. Right, so with a standard join in the UK, what you do is you fly over the upwind end of the air runway that you're going to land over. Then once you're over it, you do a long descending turn on the dead side. I've positioned myself really badly, I'm far too close to the middle of the runway here, but we'll continue anyway. And you descend down to the circuit pattern such that you can cross the downwind end of the runway 1,000 feet above it. Bring the power right off. So we're looking for 1,400 feet to cross the downwind end of the runway. Yeah, we came across the middle of the runway. That was really bad. I'm going to be high, which is not a problem. 400, 300, about 200 feet high by the time we get there, I reckon. And then we go into our standard crosswind leg. God, your flying is awful today, Richard. Which for here is runway 25, so just need to get some separation from the runway. Make sure we trim properly. Make sure we're not climbing. God, this is awful. My trim is all over the place. That's personal, that's not the airframe, that's me. Right, we'll use that. We'll start to turn now. A little bit of left rudder. We're 200 feet on our circuit height. We'll see how we get on. There we go. Downwind, looking for 1,400. Still slightly high. I'm going to wait till the threshold is in our rear 45, so about here. Now the reason I keep climbing is because I'm not trimmed correctly, so I'm manually pulling back on the stick, whereas what I should be is trimmed. So we're still 200 feet high, but I'll take that. It's not the real world. I'm not going to kill myself. Just irritating with that little haze. And once we're in our rear 3/4, which is about there, we'll start a turn for base. Proper level flap. You can see the trim change needed. And we need to start a descent, so we'll bring the power nicely back. Carb heat's out at the moment. Bring gear down. Another stage of flap. Thought it hadn't motored. We need to be descending, need to be getting down. Although we do appear to be quite low here, so I wonder if my altimeter setting's correct. Excuse me. We'll start turning now. Watch speed. Need to be going down, Richard, not up. Need to avoid accelerating as well. That's not what we need. Right. Pretty lined up. We're a little bit high. Shouldn't really be low idle on the engine at this stage in an approach. Make sure the carb heat's in. Everything's fully forward except the throttle at the minute. One red, one white. Bit of power, arrest the descent. That's a nice looking picture now. Speed's 90. We after 87, I think it is, on the approach. So we're not too bad at all with 3 miles an hour over. Drifting slightly left. Gone one red, one white, so just a little bit off the power. Back to one red, one white. Gear down, flaps down. You quite often say red, green, blue for your levers here. Drifting slightly right, so correcting. One red, one white. Speed's good. Bringing it down nicely. Don't round out like you're trying to smash the sun out of the sky. Just gently round out, bring the engine power off. Get down. There we go. And we'll go and have a look at Tatenhill. Flaps are up. Right. That was a really nice flight, that was. Really, really pleasant. Really enjoyed it. An appalling standard join and an appalling circuit, if I'm honest. I think one of the things for me is if you're flying in a real aircraft, because you don't have a 2D screen, you have a 3D world. I find it a little bit easier to keep track of what's going on. So when you look at your instruments, you've still got this sort of peripheral vision out to your left hand side when you're flying around. You've still got the peripheral vision all around, so you can pick up on changes in the aircraft attitude. And obviously being VFR, you should be flying with regards to the outside world. But as I say, let's go and have a quick look at Tatenhill. See if it's how I remember it. Got the air ambulance over there as well. If you look at that, where's it gone? Just there. Air ambulance based at Tatenhill. It's quite a busy little airfield, really. Oh, there's a bus here. I wonder why there's a coach here. Never mind. Oh, hello. Where's it going? We don't need a passenger coach here. I'm having a bit of a fight with the gear steering again. We'll bring it around. We'll park over this side. We'll actually park on the grass, which is where a lot of the aircraft park. You can see the Cessna 152 there. We'll see. Let's see if it's got a Tatenhill registration as well. It has as well, Tala. It's in my logbook, that is. There's TALA, TALB, TALC. They're the 152s, I think. Whee! Well, this is awful. I'm not a fan of the ground handling, but I think it may well be a me thing rather than a them thing. May also be an FSX 2020, sorry, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 ground thing. But there we go. Let's, because it's my aircraft, I'm going to look after it. Should have turned all the lights off, so I've blinded everybody, but never mind. It's a sim, so I've simulated their blindness. I'll take everything off. And as I say, if you don't turn it off, it can have implications when you come to start the aircraft again, which in some respects is very nice, in some respects it's also something that you need to be wary of. So just bring yourselves back down to idle for a little bit. And whilst we do that, let's pop outside and have a look at Tatenhill. In fact, we'll go to that one. Yeah, very nicely done. Obviously some sort of racetrack there. It's an old World War II airfield. So if I remember rightly, there were some Nissan huts along this area. But I'm not sure if I remember all this development. Certainly I don't remember seeing a Buccaneer here. It's very nice looking. Done a lovely job. Very nice. Air ambulance. Just get out of their way when they're launching. Cafe. This is where the flying school was that I flew out of. Was it this building or this building? Actually, I think it was this one. So this one had classrooms on that side and the operations room here, and yeah, lovely, really nicely done. But right, back to the casing point. Let's just jump back in. Oh, hello. Wasn't expecting that. Must have knocked me throttle. Right, we've given it plenty of time to balance itself out. Have a quick look through here. Throttle, mixture, magnetos, everything else is off. Avionics off, and master switch off. We'll take the headphones out as well. And we can hear everything winding down. So, what do we think then? Outside, absolutely fabulous. And actually we can see now we've got the fairings on here. Nice. Our various bits and bobs. So we've got the bits on the stabilizers. Very nice. It's a lovely looking model. 3D modelling is lovely. The texturing is absolutely fantastic. Really enjoy it. Interior, very, very nicely done. Love the audio of the engine tinking as it cools down. Very nice in terms of its originality and flying it in this condition. Obviously, if you want to fly it, you can do with the more modern avionics, but I think there's a certain amount of joy to be done in terms of VOR to VOR navigation. The tablet, in fact, we'll just pop the control locks on. Tablet, it's really, really nice. Overall, the EFB's very nice. It's very straightforward in terms of its practical use. It's nice in terms of the aircraft, maintaining the aircraft. The aircraft will bite you if you don't maintain it properly. We can come back here, for example, and let's go and have a look at the engine, and let's just see what, in fact, the airframe. Make sure we haven't broken anything, so we'll just check that. Inspect. No, it's all good. And inspect. No, that's all good. So we haven't broken anything. but the whole maintenance thing's quite nice. The analyzer obviously not working because we're not running, and the electrics, everything's turned off. So systems wise, very good, very usable. The fact it allows third-party options as well is very good. I do like that. And I have to be honest, in terms of handling, it's very nice to fly. I've got a little question mark over the ball in terms of the slip. It just seems to be that you don't need to use your feet that much, which is very unlike A2A. I think a lot of their previous stuff you had to use your feet an awful lot, but this, it doesn't seem to be quite the same. So what are my thoughts in terms of a roundup? Yeah, it's brilliant, love it. Particularly the fact that you kind of own the aircraft and you take a certain amount of care in looking after the aircraft. And if you don't look after the aircraft, then you'll soon know about it. I suppose the only thing you can go, if you wanted to go any further than this, is to actually for the sim to demand money from you to fix it. Fortunately it doesn't. So there you go, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, as I say, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.